I get it. I'm not the same as other people. I don't have the same language or repertoire that I use in order to speak about an album of this persuasion. That much was made very apparent to me by some people a couple of months ago whenever we spoke about the new Lupe Fiasco album, which I found to be excellent. But we're talking about something more than just an album, I feel, with To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. And in order to understand that, we first need to kind of fully understand what Kendrick Lamar is and what he kind of represents. Who he is a rapper that has been very, very successful, even though he's just one major label album into his career with Good Kid, Mad City, which was released a few years ago. An album that actually made my top non-metal albums list, which definitely showcases the power that it had for me. It was something that was recommended to me from The Needle Drop, who just delivered a very powerful, powerful review for this album that you should probably check out if you haven't already. Perhaps you came over here to get a different perspective, to hear what someone who traditionally doesn't speak about this style of music all of that much has to say. Well, I enjoyed Good Kid, Mad City so much that the follow-up actually gave me some fear. And fear, in this case, is not a bad thing. It's not something that you should alienate. It's expectation. You want to know whether or not this is an album that's going to fit your standards of what you feel a follow-up to a tremendous disc that you heard in the past is going to be. But you have to alienate that somewhat once you begin to listen, once you begin to hear the narrative. I enjoyed Good Kid, Mad City primarily because of its story. It's definitely one that seems to look at things from the other side of the curve, the other side of the narrative that you traditionally hear from a lot of popular or mainstream rap music. It's definitely one that painted a different perspective, the perspective of somebody who's looking to escape all of the cultures of the hood life, even though they themselves have experienced it. To Pimp a Butterfly, whenever you look at it from namesake alone, definitely is a phrase you would traditionally not hear. It's one that sounds very, very strange, but it's also one that has a lot of sense. We don't go out and pimp the things in life that are very ugly, either that or seen as culturally invisible. We pimp the things that we find to be beautiful. We pimp the things that we find to be pleasing on the eye. Even though some people in some areas may state that the hoes are not exactly the most glamorous looking things. Whenever you consider and contemplate the statement itself, promotion and pimping comes with the same direction. Dr. Dre, of course, does a lot of production help on this album and has really taken Kendrick under his wing as his protege and has really transformed this guy's life into just something that's absolutely fantastic. We hear on this album in the very final track an interview with Tupac Shakur, which showcases that this is a gentleman that, of course, was not all just about the thug life and the gangsta and the East Coast West Coast wars that we saw and heard about so often in the 1990s. This is somebody whose real promotion and real desire is really a lot of a worldview. It's one that has a lot of philosophical belief etched within it, a lot of doing things on your own and really etching out your own space in society, becoming your own legend. This is an album that certainly is working and doing its magic in order to become its own legend, and it's one that didn't really need to do very much in order to establish that fact. It's one that's made up of fantastic, fantastic narrative. Kendrick as a rapper just continues to evolve. He has so many different tools in his arsenal. He can rap in so many different styles with so many different meters. That definitely gives him a leg up, but what really gives him the biggest leg up is in his wordplay, in the way in which this wordsmith is able to craft all of his narratives. The way in which he's able to go about that is what really brandishes a confidence that can only be seen by some of the industry's giants, the people that we look upon as more than just music stars or celebrities. We look at them as icons. We look at them as inspirational. Kendrick is a guy who in the annals of music history, years down the line, will be seen as not only terrific at his craft, but also a very, very large inspiration to a lot of individuals. This album, along with Good Kid, Mad City, almost feel like they have a lot of companionship whenever it comes to the message. We hear a repeated, I would call it a poem, throughout the course of the second half toward the latter portion of this album at the end of nearly every track, and it's one that seems to really repeat the central theme, one where you see somebody who gets out of a bad situation only to have to return after realizing that there are worse situations out there. Either that or leaving some comfort only to notice that that comfort was also corrupted. And the fact that there is a lot of peace that needs to be really worked on and established throughout this world today, and it's one that we encounter and one that we really approach with a certain element of fear, mainly because peace is not necessarily the first idea on everybody's minds. It's one that's nice to speak about, but whenever it comes to actual accomplishment of that task, it's a lot harder than it looks. That's at least my interpretation, and it's probably one that doesn't match up with yours. The album itself is filled with fantastic examples as to why this style of rap, why what some people may consider to be gangster rap or West Coast rap, is an evolving creature, one that certainly has taken a lot of cue from its earlier times, but it's at its largest turn whenever it takes on an artist such as Kendrick Lamar, who's painting a bit of a different picture, one that's kind of talking about both sides of the story, but trying to push a little bit more toward the side that you don't often hear about in rap music. You have to handle things a little bit differently, and the accompanying beats and rhythm really have to accommodate that, and it's one that is done masterfully on this disc. There are samples that are taken from examples galore. In fact, one song, my ears might have been deceiving me, but it sounded a lot like, I think, Pyramid song from Radiohead, and that's the song How Much Does a Dollar Cost? And I really enjoyed this track probably as one of my favorites on the album. It's deep in the disc, however, it's one that I enjoy not only for that fact, for that little sample, but also the atmosphere, as with many other tracks on this album, just feels top-notch. It feels like it has a lot of great feeling to it, and the flow of this album just flows as masterfully as Good Kid, Mad City does. This is a narrative that does not skip a beat. It doesn't feel out of place. It feels much like a cinematic atmosphere, even though it's not one that you would traditionally associate with the cinematic atmosphere. So, overall, this is an album that is going to probably penetrate a lot of the annals of music history, and it's going to assume its rightful place within it. It's going to be one that a lot of people kind of look back upon and really note its brilliance. And they're going to note its brilliance not because whenever it was leaked and released, everybody had a collective orgasm about it, though a lot of people are. It's going to be one because it's a narrative for the ages. It's almost as though you see To Kill a Mockingbird in a musical adaptation. It's one that has a lot to really offer a listener, not to mention its narrative is certainly unique. Though a lot of rappers certainly try to paint a picture like this, they're usually painting the other side more often, and it's more of a sob story, either that or a hardening story, a tale of manhood, instead of somebody who's going through the fierce mental journey that all of these temptations, that all of these situations really cause a man or any individual to really encounter. This is an album that's going to transition itself from just a very, very successful disc whenever it does get its whenever it gets its hard copy released, to a album that really paints a picture of 2015, paints a picture of an age, perhaps offers us some wisdom to the way things were and the way things are, but hopefully also is a scribe or a scroll to the way things may become. A lot of lofty thought, a lot of lofty expectation, but this is an album that certainly has all of the qualities and the abilities to make some of those things a reality. This is music that will certainly move people, and my only thought, the only reservation that I see, is that this is an age where music can move people for a short period of time, but unlike the past, music doesn't seem to move people in order to really fully participate in a message. It doesn't seem like they fully attempt to participate in something like this that doesn't have all of the cool factors of perhaps sex, drugs, and violence that a lot of the others paint the picture of. It's not exactly a party lifestyle disc, and we are certainly in an age where party lifestyle tends to supersede various other ideas, unless of course people are on Facebook or Twitter and opt to be a bit of an armchair activist. Love this album. I would not be surprised if we saw this once again in December whenever I speak about my top 10, 15, 20, however many favorite non-heavy metal releases. It's something I do each and every year. You can actually see the one I did for 2014 somewhere in the description box, and in fact I will also include the video where Good Kid, Mad City was a member of the list for you guys. I would probably give this album a 9.5 out of 10, a 95 out of 100. I really love this disc. It's one that's growing on me. It may actually supersede Good Kid, Mad City for me, but that album really provoked a legend right away. This is one that's not only furthering the legend, but may prove to be culturally the more important album as time wears on. So what did you think about To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar? Did you love it or did you hate it? Was this an album that you even touched? Is this one that you still need to listen to? And as something a little bit different, which non-heavy metal or non-rock discs should I talk about next? Leave your answers in the comments below. Thanks for checking this out. I really appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. I'll talk to you guys next time. Cover Killer Nation. I'm out to actually, hopefully, navigate through the road construction of life that exists literally right outside my window. In fact, I'm going to take you here. All of this garbage and bullshit is why you probably hear a bunch of background noise. Fucking sucks. Anyways, out.